Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. Been a little while since I posted a video, a couple of weeks now. Had a couple of issues with the camera, but that's all sorted now, so I'm going to try and get a couple of quick videos out quickly this week for you. Starting today with things you should do before your first driving lesson. So what should I get ready to do if I'm going to take driving lessons with a driving instructor? What should be the things I should be ready for and have done already before I go and take that first lesson? Okay, so the first thing I think that you should be doing before you take your first driving lesson, it's an obvious one really, I suppose. You need to apply for your driving licence. Now, usually they're pretty quick and they come back in a couple of weeks if you fill out all the forms correctly and you get everything signed properly and you fill it in and everything is filled correctly. You can see delays when it's busy, so I would expect that. So obviously at the minute filming this, we're just starting to ease lockdown now of this COVID-19. So things are starting to ease. I would imagine there'll be quite a surge of people applying for their driving licenses. All the people where we've been at home now for 2.5 months. By the time we get out of the back of this, it's going to be probably 3.5 months worth of people that are not been taking their driving lessons that would have been normally, and all those people that would have been applying normally to get their driving license, maybe they've just left it because the uncertainty at the minute. So there are times of the year that sometimes it just gets busy, they get a bit of a backlog, and sometimes it can take up to 6 weeks to get your driving license back. And now you shouldn't be starting driving lessons without your driving license in your hand, because you might not be allowed to drive. They might decide that they need extra information from you, or you need certain things to enable you to drive. So you shouldn't be taking a driving lesson just because you've applied for your driving license or just because you're 17 or older. You need to be taking your driving lesson. You should only be driving a car when you've got your license in your hand. Like I say, it seems like an obvious one. The second thing, driving instructors are generally very busy. We generally all have waiting lists for certain times, especially evenings and weekends. They're very popular, and there's only 5 evenings a week, and there's only 2 days at the weekend, so you can only see a certain amount of people. So if you want driving lessons at a specific time, and if that is generally evening or weekend, you're going to want to get in contact with a driving instructor a good couple of months before you're looking to start. You could get lucky and get an instructor that says, oh, I've just had somebody leave, and you get in very quickly. But to avoid disappointment, try and get yourself phone up at least a couple of months in advance, so you're well prepared and you're going to get that space. All too often there are people that are disappointed that they can't get fit in for lessons with the instructor that they want because they just leave it too late. When your 17th birthday is, it's the same year. It's been same day it's been every year for the last 16, so it shouldn't come as a great surprise to you when your birthday is. So you should be looking to get those lessons booked at an early date, so you definitely get one, especially if you want one on your birthday. I mean, from my point of view as an instructor, flexibility from my students is the biggest thing that will allow them to be able to get a lesson quickly. If you can only do 5 o'clock on a Wednesday evening, well, you've only got one chance of getting that, and if someone's already in that space, then you could wait a while to get that time if you want to wait for that instructor in particular. So be as flexible as you can. Sometimes you might need to talk to work and ask them, what can I do? I want to do some driving lessons. Is there any way I can get some daytime time out, especially if you work shift? Sometimes that helps. I'm not saying your work are not obliged to give you that time, but it's worth a try. You might get something. You might win. You might get a win there to get your lessons in a bit sooner. But obviously, equally, if you've done it in advance, you shouldn't get disappointed. If you've gone that into the future to book your lesson, you should be fine. But the more flexible you are, the more likely you are to get in earlier as well. Theory as well is, I'd say, the next thing that we'd look at. It doesn't hurt for you to get prepared with some theory. So I offer my students access to a theory website to help them kind of get practiced and get ready for taking their theory test. And if you sign up for lessons with me, I'll give you access to that, and you can start looking at some of the basic theory stuff, so the road signs and traffic lights, things like that, so you get a bit more information, so when you do get out on the road, it's not all completely new to you and you might think, oh, I've seen some of this before, I know what's going on here. Or when your driving instructor tells you something, you think, oh, I've heard that, I remember seeing that, or I've read that in the theory revision. Now, I'm not saying you have to have passed your theory test. What you want to be doing is working towards it for as soon as you can after you start learning to drive, if not already done it before you start. It is a bonus if you've got it, because the last thing you want to do is start your driving lessons and then put it off and delay it and not do it and think, well, I'll do it next week, I'll learn some next week, and then before you know it, you're pretty much ready for your practical test, but you can't do it because you haven't got your theory. So it's definitely something to get a head start on. You don't have to have it done. It does make life a lot easier if it's one less thing to worry about. And then I suppose the last thing I'd really talk about would be what to expect on your first lesson. You shouldn't need to do any more preparation than what we've talked about. Make sure you've got your licence, a little bit of theory knowledge, get your lessons booked nice and early so you know you nice and far in advance, so you know that you're going to be able to take the space that you need. And then just expect on your first lesson. So if you've never ever driven before, you're going to need to be told everything. So some people have an idea about some bits and pieces, but don't expect too much driving. So you shouldn't be sat at the side of the road or in a car park for the whole lesson, just sat still for the whole lesson. You should be moving, at least driving along a straight, quiet road, moving and stopping at the side of the road, so coming out, driving along and stop again, maybe, or driving around in a car park if it's if you've got one big enough and close enough to where you live, to get you moving, get you a feel of what it feels like for driving the car. There's a certain amount of admin that kind of has to be done if it's not already been done, so it might just take some extra details from you, go over your flexibility. You should be checking your driving licence, checking your eyesight, all that sort of stuff, and then, like I say, basic controls and explaining of how to use the car and when to use certain controls. And you don't need to know about how to use the air conditioning on your first lesson, or how to open and close the window necessarily on your first lesson, but you do need to know where the brake and accelerator and the clutch is, and maybe have them explained how you use them and when you use them, how to turn the car on and off, and what to listen for when your driving instructor is explaining things to you, so you know what they're going to say and how they're going to say it when they give you an instruction. So those sorts of things are really important to cover off first, so that you are actually able to control the car and get some learning done and make some progress. Otherwise, everything's going to be, if you just get straight in and jump straight into the car and they say, right, this is what you do, and on you go and you start moving and you don't quite understand. Noisy motorbike. Sometimes, some people, that would be just too much overload and you won't be able to get anywhere with anything, so a little bit of explanation can help. And don't be worried about, I think with driving lessons in general as well, don't be worried about how your friend's doing. Now, they might get off to a racing start and then come unstuck at roundabouts, and maybe not be able to do roundabouts, and it takes weeks and weeks and weeks, but you might take a little bit longer to get going, but then all of a sudden everything just knocks into place really, really quickly, and before you know it, you're at the same pace as they are, but at the beginning maybe things were slightly out of line. So only ever compare yourself to yourself the previous week. So that kind of really wraps it up for today with this one. Just a nice short video today, just about sort of expectations of what you should do first lesson and how to prepare yourself for it. And I would say the biggest thing over all of that you can be is have an open mind, be receptive, and listen to what your driving instructor's saying, and just relax and just try and enjoy it. And you should have a good time. Before you know it, your lesson will be over as well. So if you're not going to enjoy it, not ready to set out to enjoy it, your time's going to go super quick. So you want to enjoy all that time you've got. Okay, so let me know if there's anything that you think I might have missed, or anything that you felt, if you've had driving lessons before, anything that you would wish you'd done before that I haven't maybe covered. But if you cover those basic steps, you, like I say, should have a good first lesson, should know what to expect, and you should enjoy it. Okay, well, hopefully you've enjoyed this little video. If you have, don't forget, down below there, like and subscribe for me if you can, just so you get updates of when the next video is coming. I'll see you all again soon.